Episode 121. I'll show you what happens when you touch Mount Hua. 1. Wei Sohang scanned the room, his face scrunched in confusion. These are the people of Mount Hua? He had heard legends, but man, seeing it in person? A whole different vibe. They looked sharp, almost like human swords, with that same don't mess with me energy. Wei was third class himself, but now he was feeling more like third tier. His dad was always babbling about Mount Hua's reputation, and now it was starting to make sense. These disciples had the drip, the kind of swag that made you sit up straight even while chewing. Num, 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 num. Wei Soheng turned to the side and almost choked. While everyone else was nibbling on their food with all the grace of a monk at a tea ceremony, one guy in the corner was absolutely demolishing his plate like it was his last meal on earth. What in the... Chicken bones were disappearing into this man's mouth at record speed, and the way he cleaned them, man, even a vacuum would have been impressed. Wait, did he just... Even weirder, no one seemed to care. They just acted like this gluttonous man didn't exist. Is that Mount Hua's divine dragon? Wei Sohang looked at Chung Myung in disbelief. His appearance wasn't bad. Hell, if you judged him by looks alone, the guy was killing it. But his manners? Woof. Rumors can't be right, can they? It didn't make sense. The Southern Edge sect wasn't the type to stay quiet if this guy didn't live up to the hype. The fact they hadn't raised a stink confirmed it. This was the guy who laid a beatdown on the Southern Edge's second-class disciples. But him? Chung Myung's attitude was more drunk guy at a street brawl than legendary warrior. Strip him of Mount Hua's uniform and he'd fit right in with the alley thugs, maybe even run the place. Is it really okay to take this dude with me? Just then, the door swung open and a man walked in. Yoonjong. Wei Sohang sighed in relief. Now, that's a divine dragon. Yoonjong had it all. The presence, the discipline, and the calm air that said, I got this. If this guy claimed to be Mount Hua's top dog, Wei Sohang would have thrown him a damn parade. But nope, it was Chung Myung. The universe really has a messed up sense of humor. Yoonjong walked over to Chung Myung, frowning. Dude, slow down. You're gonna pop your stomach. I'm making up for months of starvation. You starved for 3 months? Chung Myung gulped down his food and washed it down with a glass of water like he was training for a competitive eating contest. I lived off those godforsaken pills for 3 months. Everything tastes like pills now, even air. Man, how do those Shaolin monks live off grass? I need meat. We used to live off grass too, you maniac. But to be fair, it was Chung Myung who changed that. So, did you get stronger? Stronger? Shh, you'll see. Chung Myung grinned, clearly loving the attention. His martial arts had evolved, but that didn't mean he wouldn't relish kicking some ass just the same. Did the training go well while I was gone? Yoonjong's face went sour. The resentful gazes of the other disciples behind him said it all. We had a few days of peace. Man, why'd you bring him out? 3 whole months of living like humans. Those days are gone. Gone, I tell you. Yoonjong sighed. Everyone trained hard. Oh, that's so? The moment Chung Myung's eyes sparked, Yoonjong changed the subject fast. Not important now. What's important is Hwayoung Gate. Ah, right. Those Wudang bastards. Chung Myung's face twisted like he'd bitten into a lemon. Let's crack some skulls. When are we leaving? Sect leader says tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? We can't leave now. The Wudang might have already sent someone. We need to get there before you lose your chance to crack heads, right? Hell yeah. So pack your stuff once you're done eating. We head out early. Got it. Chung Myung stood up and walked outside, and the entire room collectively sighed in relief. Thought I was gonna die. This isn't life. It's survival. The back door creaked open and a head poked in, nervously scanning the room. Is he gone? Yeah. Baeksang entered, followed by 2 second-class disciples who looked like they were walking through a battlefield. Man, I can't even eat in peace. What kind of life is this? We had days of peace, and now it's over. Why did he have to come back early? Kill me now. Seriously. Wei Sohang, meanwhile, was still staring, utterly confused. What the hell is going on? Wasn't Chung Myung the youngest? Even the second-class disciples seemed scared of him. Wei Sohang met Yoonjong's eyes. Disciple Yoonjong? Yoonjong sighed, giving him a look that said, You poor, clueless boy. Listen, you don't need to try to understand young trainee Wei. Soon, You'll know whether you like it or not. An unsettling chill crawled down Wei Soheng's spine. Next morning, Wei Soheng waited in front of the sect leader's residence, bags packed, nerves on edge. Yunjong and Zhou Gul were already there. He's late. Wait, no, there he is. Wei Soheng turned and saw a man approaching. His jaw dropped. Amazing. This guy was straight out of a hero novel. The hero, in fact. If Yunjong had that expert calm, this man had the glow of a straight-up legend. Yunjong bowed. Baekchun Sasek, did you sleep well? Baekchun, the righteous sword of Hua. Baekchun had a reputation that preceded him. He'd led his fellow disciples to wipe out a horde of bandits, saving countless lives. And let's not forget, people praised him as being easy on the eyes. Eye candy. And he fights? This guy's got it all. Baekchun approached with a smile. Sleep? Who can sleep when that lunatic's back out? And now I gotta go with him. What the hell did I do to deserve this? We're all stuck in this, Sasuk. Yeah, you're not alone. The three of them sighed like soldiers headed to war. Soon after, Chung Myung appeared, waving like a carefree idiot, while everyone else's faces twisted in dismay. Up already? Overachievers, huh? Please sleep in, just for once, damn it. Chung Myung looked at Baekchun. Sasuk, you're coming too? Baekchun's expression twitched. Yep, lucky me. Well, Sasuk is fine, but Sago too? Yes. Seriously? Yes. Thus began the Mount Hua disciples' journey to Huayong Gate. Chapter 122. I'll show you what happens when you mess with Mount Hua. 2. Hyunjong's eyes were locked on the group leaving through the gate, and damn, he was nervous. Will they be okay? We sent Baekchun and Yunjong with them for that reason. Anyone else we can send? Maybe like an army? Sect leader, we're fresh out of spares. Hyunjong gave Unam a sideways glance, and Unam, ever the smooth operator, just turned his head like he hadn't heard a thing, dodging like a pro. You really don't want to keep tabs on them? That's a bit much, don't you think? Besides, if we butt in too much, it'll just blow up in our faces. And if we don't, things will probably get worse, right? Tache. Hard to argue when the person causing chaos is Chung Myung. I'm worried. So damn worried. Hyunjong let out a deep, weary sigh. Beside him, Hyunsang chuckled. Hyunjong shot him a dirty look. What's so funny, huh? I'm sorry, sect leader, but come on, you can't tell me this isn't hilarious. What's hilarious about this situation? Hyunsang flashed a bright smile. 2 years ago, we were scared our disciples would get their asses kicked by the Southern Edge sect. Now? Now, you're worried they'll beat the Wudong disciples too hard. Hyunjong blinked. Well, when you put it that way. From the outside looking in, anyone would think Mount Hua's leader was scared stiff of Wudong after getting lucky once against the Southern Edge sect. But hey, after 2 years of brutal training, the Mount Hua disciples were no joke anymore. Just trust and wait. These aren't reckless kids. They'll come back with Mount Hua's name shining brighter than ever. Fame can be a double-edged sword. Excuse me? Infamy. It's just another kind of fame. Hyunjong sighed again as his students disappeared into the distance. I just hope they come back in one piece. Hun Sang, glancing sideways, thought, well, let's not make any promises here. At first, Wei Soheng had thought the plan made sense. All right, trainee, we gotta get to Nanyang fast, but you're the weak link here. So how about you stop dragging us down and pick up the pace? Wei Soheng had to admit they weren't wrong. He'd sprinted from Nanyang to Hua practically killing himself in the process. And even on his best day, he wouldn't be able to keep up with Mount Hua's top dogs. But come on, they wouldn't just leave me behind, right? He'd tried to believe that, and they seemed trustworthy, at first. Then they got to Hua snagged 2 horses, and loaded up a cart. That's when Wei Soheng realized he'd made a huge mistake trusting them. Hey, I said I'd take care of this. That's when Wei noticed the bottles piling up next to the food. They weren't filled with water or juice, that's for damn sure. Chung Myung had brought the party. Kua! Life's good! There he was, sprawled out in the cart, already 3 bottles in, with a stupid grin plastered on his face. Wei Soheng just stared at the scene in disbelief, then turned to Baekchun. Senior, he's drunk. Mount Hua doesn't have a no-drinking policy. Sure, Wei knew that, but wasn't it a bit, weird for a disciple to get hammered in front of his seniors? Wasn't there a line? And what the hell is going on here? Yu Yisol, sitting next to the mess that was Chung Myung, was feeding him jerky. literally tossing it into his mouth like she was throwing snacks to a dog, and the dude was eating it up like it was no big deal. Wei Soheng's brain short-circuited as he watched this bizarre scene unfold. "Don't worry about it, Wei," Baekjeon called out. "Some things just defy understanding." Wei Soheng glanced at Yu Yisul again. "Yeah, definitely defies understanding." They were already on their way to Nanyang, but damn, Wei Soheng was starting to have second thoughts. "We should reach in a couple days," Baekjeon said, staring ahead. Wei shifted his gaze too, watching Yoonjong and Jo Gul guiding the horses. Damn, those horses look expensive. The cart sped along at an insane pace, way faster than Wei could ever manage on foot. This was definitely the way to travel, and with no brakes needed, it was perfect. But Kua, this is the life! Watching Chung Jung-myung guzzle down alcohol made Wei's stomach churn. He didn't want to be the guy who judged others for enjoying themselves, but there was something about Chung Myung that just got under his skin. "Hey, Wei," Baekjeon called. "Yes, Senior Baekjeon? What kind of place is Hwayong Gate?" Caught off guard by the question, Wei hesitated. "I'm not asking for any deep reason. We left in such a rush, I didn't get the details. I know it's a part of Mount Hua, but I need to know more to handle things properly." "No, it's fine. I just wasn't sure how to explain it." Wei scratched the back of his head. "There's really nothing that's special about it." Baekjeon shook his head. "No, it's special enough. Until recently, Mount Hua's name didn't mean much, but your gate still stood strong. That's impressive." Even Chung Myung, still horizontal, turned his attention to Wei. "I didn't do it out of duty or anything. My father was just really proud to be a Mount Hua disciple." Wei's expression darkened slightly. The guy's been through some rough times, Chung Myung thought, listening quietly. Wei's dad had probably thought about ditching Mount Hua more times than he could count. Learning martial arts from a dying sect wasn't exactly an appealing proposition. I can't even tell you how much my dad loved hearing about the last Southern Edge conference. The guy doesn't even drink, but he downed 2 whole bottles and couldn't stop talking about how Mount Hua was back on the map. Baekjeon nodded thoughtfully. Wei continued. "Actually, it was my great-grandfather who was a disciple of Mount Hua. My dad always regretted not making it into the sect." Baekjeon nodded again. "Anyway, my dad takes a lot of pride in Hwayong Gate. We've been lucky, never starved or anything. If those damn Path's Edge jerks hadn't shown up..." "Didn't your dad get beat in a fight?" "Yeah, but it was weird." "Weird?" Wei nodded. "My dad's been training his whole life. No way he should have lost to some young punk. In martial arts, you only get stronger with time. Old dudes in Murim, tough as nails. But the guy who beat him was just too young. I don't get how my dad lost." Baekjeon frowned. Something wasn't adding up. Wei Soheng sighed. "Honestly, I should apologize." "For what?" "I didn't think Mount Hua would actually come to help." Baekjeon smiled. "It's tough dealing with the Wudang sect. We were desperate too." Chung Myung shot up from his lying position, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Whatever the outcome, huh? There's only one outcome. We're gonna split some heads." Yu Yisol pressed down on his head, forcing him back down, but he kept talking. "You think we're gonna stop because someone told us not to? Hell no. We're cracking some skulls for the sect leader. He's getting old, and I want to make sure he smiles hearing we bash some Wudang heads before he kicks the bucket." Baekjeon cringed. "How are you respecting the sect leader while roasting him?" "And let's be real," Chung Myung grinned. "We're here to whoop some Wudang ass, right?" Baekjeon sighed. "Yeah, that's true. And we've got the perfect chance." A fire burned in Chung Myung's eyes. "I tried living a peaceful life, you know." "Lies. But those bastards touched us first. Time to teach them a lesson." Baekjeon sighed again. "The Wudang disciples have no idea what's coming for them." Episode 123. I'll show you what happens when you mess with Mount Hua. "Has there been any news from Soheng?" "No news yet." "I see." Wei Lishan let out a low sigh. His face had lost all its life. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years overnight. "Gate leader, you've got to be patient just a little while longer." I know, but..." Seeing him struggle to even find the words, Yeonpyeong, his right-hand man, sighed. "Man, he's one step away from a full breakdown." The Path's Edge training hall had been at Hwayong Gate's throat ever since they arrived. They were so power-hungry, even defeating the gate leader didn't satisfy them. They were demanding Huayong Gate pack up and bounce. Permanently. It was an absolute power move, but Huayong Gate didn't have the muscle to fight back. In Kangho, it's all about power. The strong eat and the weak get eaten. After all these years of living here, they were only now fully digesting that harsh reality. Did you say Wudang's disciples are arriving soon? Not yet, but given the time, they should be here any minute. Right, cough, cough. Gate leader, you okay? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Please lie down. I will. But they both knew lying down wasn't an option. If the Wudang disciples showed up, Huayong Gate would be evicted on the spot. How could Wei Lishan just sit down and relax when his life's work, the sect that raised him, was about to be erased? What about the disciples? They're on edge. I'm sure they are. Another deep sigh slipped from his lips. He knew the disciples were tense, but he couldn't blame them. Even with the Wudang threat looming over them, they were standing their ground, guarding the gate. At least I didn't completely fail. The loyalty of his disciples was the one thing giving him hope. Gate leader, Yum Pyong called out, breaking the heavy silence. Yum Pyong had followed Wei Lishan for years, and they'd built this sect together. But now, they were backed into a corner with no good options left. Gate leader, what if we try talking to the Path's Edge leader again? It's useless. Wei Lishan shook his head. If they wanted something, we might have had room for negotiation. But their only goal is to kick us out of Nanyang. What's there to even talk about? So, we're just supposed to sit here and watch it all crumble? Mount Hua will respond soon. Gate leader. Yeonpyeong's face twisted. He respected his leader, but the man had a fatal flaw. He went blind the second Mount Hua was mentioned. This was his biggest weakness. Our enemy is Wudang. Mount Hua might be on the rise again, but the Wudang sect is a goddamn behemoth. Do you really think Mount Hua can save us from them? Even if they wanted to, Mount Hua wouldn't stick their neck out for us. Who would? It's Wudang. We're on our own. Wei Lishan looked at Yeonpyeong. He knew his man was right. Still, that's why I told you to stop sending money to Mount Hua. If you'd sent those funds to Wudang or Shaolin, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess. Yeonpyeong wasn't wrong. But even so, Wei Lishan couldn't agree. We are Mount Hua. We can't abandon our roots. It's who we are. You think we should just throw away our identity like it's nothing? Gate leader. If we did that, then no matter where we go, it wouldn't make a difference. Today, it's Mount Hua. Tomorrow, it'd be Wudang. And if Shaolin fell, we'd drop them too? No way. I'm not living like that. No one would know. I don't care who knows. I'll protect what's mine. Yeonpyeong let out a heavy breath, frustrated beyond belief. But this is why he's the leader. Despite his frustrations, Yeonpyeong respected Wei Lishan because of this very stubbornness. If the man were the type to toss Mount Hua aside, Yeonpyeong would never have followed him this far. And I believe. What? Mount Hua won't abandon us. Yeonpyeong shook his head. Gate leader, it's not about their heart or sincerity. It's about whether Mount Hua has the muscle to handle Wudang. Sometimes, heart is enough. Yeonpyeong was about to retort when, knock, knock, knock! Someone was banging on the gate. Wei Lishan and Yeonpyeong's expressions tightened. They weren't expecting visitors. Whoever it was, it couldn't be good. At this point, only one group would knock. Gate leader Wei, you in there? We need to talk. Yeonpyeong's face contorted in frustration. Already? Damn it. They were here, most likely with the Wudang disciples in tow. What do we do, Gate leader? What choice do we have? Wei Lishan sighed, his body trembling as he stood up. I have to face them. If I don't, they'll think I'm a coward. As soon as he stepped outside, the Path's Edge leader bulldozed his way in like he owned the place. The guy was all brute, no class. Hard to believe he was even a Taoist disciple. I've got nothing more to say, Wei Lishan said coldly. You've got nothing to say? You lost. You should be gone by now. What are you still doing here? What law says I need to leave after losing a fight? There's no law, but what about your pride? Wei Lishan sighed deeply. There was no rule saying you had to leave after losing unless you bet on the outcome. But in a clash between two sects, the losing side usually bowed out. Mostly because the loser had no way to stand up against the victor. They were too weak to stay. New recruits would naturally flock to the stronger sect. I've got nothing to say. Now leave. No, I don't think I will. The Path's Edge leader grinned maliciously. You won't get it until blood is spilled, will you? As the atmosphere grew tense, a figure stepped forward from the crowd. Leader, let me handle this. Oh, you? It's such a minor thing. It's fine. Well then, go ahead. The man who stepped up was dressed in a black robe, his demeanor far more polite than the Path's Edge leader. On his chest, a pine tree was embroidered, a symbol that made it clear where he was from. A Wudang sect disciple. The man bowed respectfully. Nice to meet you. I am Jinhyun, a second-class disciple of Wudang. Wei Lishan. His gesture was dignified and respectful, but Wei Lishan could sense the danger beneath the surface. Jinhyun wasn't here to make peace. Wait, Jinhyun? The indestructible sword? It's embarrassing to hear such praise. Wei Lishan's heart sank. This was bad news. Jinhyun was a rising star, a prodigy who might one day become the greatest swordsman Wudang had ever seen. The fact that Wudang had sent him showed just how serious they were. I've heard about the situation. You want to stay in Nanyang? Yes. Jinhyun shook his head softly. I don't think that's a good idea. Though his voice was calm, it carried the weight of finality. Nanyang is too small for two sects to share. You staying here will only lead to more problems. And Hwayoung Gate is the one that'll suffer. Jinhyun smiled. How about this? What? We'll compensate you for the damage to your reputation. If you leave Nanyang, we'll cover all your expenses. Yeonpyeong, listening from the side, scowled. These arrogant bastards think this is about money? Leaving Nanyang wasn't just a move, it meant giving up everything they'd built, their history, and starting over from scratch. Thank you, but we have no intention of leaving, Wei Lishan responded firmly. Jinhyun's smile faded, his eyes turning cold. If that's the case, then there's one other option. Wei Lishan looked at him, hoping there was some other way. What is it? If you want to stay, take down the plum blossom from your signboard. Wei Lishan's face hardened. Jinhyun continued, unfazed by the growing tension. Two gates could coexist, but not under the name of Mount Hua. You can stay, but you'll have to remove Mount Hua's name. What? Choose. Jinhyun's voice turned icy. Remove Mount Hua's name, and we'll let you stay. Heck, we'll even bring you under Wudang's wing. But if not, his words were sharp as knives. The name of Hwayoung Gate will disappear from Nanyang forever. Wei Lishan's lips trembled. After a long moment, he sighed and spoke. We cannot abandon Mount Hua. Even if the day comes when we take down our signboard, we will still be a part of Mount Hua. That isn't something we can abandon. Jinhyun shook his head. There's nothing more I can do for you. You've refused both options that I've given. If you don't leave within 6 hours, then we will clear you out ourselves. Wei Lishan bit his lip. Isn't this behavior too shameful for a famous sect like Wudang? You're mistaken. Jinhyun said in a cold voice. It's not that Wudang is abusing its fame to do this. Rather, it's because we do this that Wudang's name resonates throughout the world. What's more, we've already tried everything we could. You were the one that refused our offers. We. That's enough. I have nothing more to say. You have 6 hours. Jinhyun then spoke in a quiet voice so that only Wei Lishan could hear him. If you're going to beg for help, I'd search for a better place. Do you think Mount Hua will help Hwayoung Gate? Against our Wudang sect? Wei Lishan couldn't say anything. Jinhyun's face had a wide and demeaning sneer plastered across it. Horrifying. The Wudang sect is protecting the Path's Edge training hall and persecuting Hwayoung Gate, but Mount Hua was doing nothing to help them. What had Wei Lishan's devotion amounted to after all these years? Mount Hua doesn't dare to come. If the gate leader was a bit wiser. At that moment, what is he saying? That two-faced bastard? Jinhyun turned his head toward the muffled voice coming from the back. Who are you? Move. Why are you blocking the gate? His Sayoungs, who were standing in front of the gate, were pushed away, and a man came walking through the gap between them. Who? Before Jinhyun could even gather an impression about this sudden stranger, he was struck with words he had never heard before. It's me. You unscrupulous little bitch. Jinhyun's mouth fell agape without him realizing it. Episode 124, I'll show you what happens when you mess with Mount Hua. 4. Two-faced and shady as hell. The kind of insults you'd expect when someone claims to be righteous but acts like a total snake. In other words, is this dude actually cursing me? It was straight up disrespect toward the disciples. Jin Yun knew those insults existed, but never in his wildest dreams did he think he'd hear them thrown directly at him, especially while standing there in his Wudang robe like some VIP. Is this for real? Inside Wudang, no one ever dared to use foul language. And outside, even less likely. Who in their right mind would throw hands or words at a Wudang disciple? You'd need at least 10 lives and a death wish to go that far. I mean, this was the Wudang sect we're talking about. Along with the Shaolin sect, Wudang was basically ancient martial arts royalty. There were plenty of sects, but only Shaolin could stand on equal footing with Wudang. And this random guy had the nerve to insult a disciple of Wudang? Is this dude crazy? But the man didn't look unhinged. Actually, he seemed pretty calm and collected, with sharp eyes and a clear mind. No, if anything, he looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, with that slightly tilted posture and that expression that screamed, "Why am I still dealing with this BS? Who the hell are you?" What's it matter? You won't like the answer. This guy has to be a madman. Jin Hyun seriously considered who this dude might be. They say a solid beating can fix crazy, but that's just a saying. A punch works the same on a sane guy too. Before Jin Hyun could continue, another commotion broke out behind him. Move it! I gotta get through. Why is everyone crowding the door? Jogul, shut up and just walk in already. A new group barged in through the entrance. What the hell? Did people usually push through a crowd like this? Even if they didn't know the men blocking the way were Wudang disciples, barging through a group of sword-wielding dudes wasn't exactly normal behavior. But these guys were slipping in as if they were squeezing through a crowded marketplace. Who the hell are these people? Just then, Father! The last person to enter bolted straight toward Wei Lishan, who immediately lit up. So-heng! Father, I brought people from Mount Hua. Ah! Everyone heard that. Mount Hua? Jin Yun's face hardened. So, the people in front of him were from Mount Hua? Now that I think about it. Yep, there it was, a plum blossom pattern on their chests. The first impression they made had thrown him off so much he forgot to check. Ah, Mount Hua! Wei Lishan's eyes sparkled with emotion, especially after Jin Hyun had just dropped the bomb that Mount Hua would never show up. Wait, Mount Hua? Jin Hyun started scanning their faces more closely. There was a swordsman in white, looking cautious as hell. Next to him, a soft-spoken guy, and beside him, a sharp, ready-to-fight dude. And then, holy mother of beauty, a woman so stunning Jin Hyun had to mentally smack himself to stay focused. All good until that point. But then, one guy stood out like a sore thumb. What's this guy's deal? Even though Mount Hua had fallen from grace, it was still one of the 9 great sects. So how did this dude make the cut? Compared to the others, he was like a rusty sword in a display of legendary blades. You from Mount Hua too? What? Are you from Shaolin? Jin Yun wanted to say something, but just closed his mouth. Then the swordsman in white stepped up to Wei Lishan. I greet the leader of Huayong Gate. We heard the gate was in trouble, and the sect leader sent us to help. Ah, the sect leader. Wei Lishan's eyes welled up. Although he had sent his son to Mount Hua, it was more of a desperate move than anything. He didn't actually believe Mount Hua would come, but here they were. Wei Lishan trembled with emotion. Devotion. Even with Jin Hyun, the indestructible swordsman, standing right there, these guys seemed legit. Then, are you Mount Hua's divine? Nope. Before Wei Lishan could finish, Baek Chun, the guy in white, cut him off with a tight smile. I'm Baek Chun, a second-class disciple of Mount Hua. Ah, the righteous sword of Hua. I've heard a lot about you. So, they sent the righteous sword? It seemed like Mount Hua really valued this mission, sending such strong disciples. Wait, but they didn't send the divine dragon? And then Kua, a man who had been doing God knows what, suddenly grabbed Wei Lishan's hand with admiration in his eyes. Ah, gate leader. I've heard so much about you. 30 years of sending money to the sect? Is that right? Right, but quack! The guy looked so moved his eyes were practically tearing up. But why? You're a saint, man. All those years sending money to the sect when even beggars turned their backs? I thought all the good people were dead, but here you are, alive and well. Wei Lishan had met hundreds, maybe thousands of people in his time, but no one quite like this. This guy's from Mount Hua? Wei Lishan gently pulled his hand back. And who are you? Ah, the name's Chung Myung, sent by the sect leader himself. Chung Myung? The third-class disciple? Yep, that's me. Feel free to call me by name, dear gate leader. Ha ha! What? Do I need to show you some identification? Chung Myung then shifted his gaze from Jin Hyun back to Wei Lishan, whom he looked at with a soft smile. The difference in attitude that he showed when dealing with these two men was absurd. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything now. Sect leader said that Huayong Gate is the best among Mount Hua's inner circle. That was true, because this was the only gate that helped them when they needed it most. Chung Myung smiled and turned away. Looking at Baekcheon, he tilted his head and asked, "What are you doing, Sasuk? Are you done?" "Yes." Baekcheon sighed and looked at Jin Hyun. "I'm Baekcheon from Mount Hua. Jin Hyun from Wudang. We came here because there seemed to be a problem with the subsect. It seems like you were speaking directly with the gate leader, but now you can discuss these matters with me. Are you saying that Mount Hua will be getting involved? Is there a reason we shouldn't?" Hearing Baekcheon's response, Jin Hyun narrowed his eyes. How dare they? Mount Hua was a broken and ruined sect that only recently started to re-establish itself. Such a sect was getting involved in the Wudang sect's matters over a small subsect? This was unacceptable. Furthermore, Jin Hyun looked at Chung Myung. That's Mount Hua's divine dragon? It was absurd. Mount Hua's divine dragon Chung Myung. The divine dragon had suddenly made its name 2 years ago and rose to prominence overnight. That name has echoed painfully in Jin Hyun's ears, and there was a specific reason that he remembered that name so clearly. Jin Hyun, Wudang's sword dragon. And Chung Myung, Mount Hua's divine dragon. There were 4 others with similar titles, and were collectively referred to as the 6 dragons. In the Kangho, the 6 dragons referred to the 6 strongest disciples that would become masters and lead the world of martial arts. Jin Hyun wasn't interested in titles like 6 dragons or sword dragon. There was only one thing he cared about. Among the 6 dragons, the evaluation of Mount Hua's divine dragon was greater than him. This guy is supposed to be stronger than me? That's nonsense. Of course, the evaluations take age into account. Chung Myung is anticipated to be stronger than Jin Hyun at the same age, but Jin Hyun refused to acknowledge that assessment. And sect leader was right. Perhaps Mount Hua's disciples will come to the Nanyang. If the disciples of Mount Hua come, then Mount Hua's divine dragon Chung Myung will also be there. If that's the case, let the world know that Mount Hua's disciples cannot compare to the disciples of the Wudang sect. Jin Hyun smiled. How do you plan to intervene? Jin Hyun arrogantly looked down on Baekcheon. Rather than the divine dragon, he was more concerned about this man. Baekcheon's momentum and sense of presence from before was no joking matter. I guess his reputation wasn't in vain, unlike Mount Hua's divine dragon. It would be best if we could pleasantly discuss this matter, but, Baekcheon smiled, you don't seem to want to do that, right? Haha, that's a misunderstanding. It would be great if this could be resolved through diplomacy. However, the difference in ideals is too great to narrow, so conversation seems fleeting. Isn't that the same thing? Baekcheon urged him with a sharp tone. A fishy smile formed on Jin Hyun's lips. Then how should we resolve this? A match? We won't back down. It seems like Wudang's methods are rougher than I expected. Rather than rough, it's efficient. There's no need to waste each other's time. It was then. Ah, your time isn't worth shit. Baekcheon and Jin Hyun turned their heads at the same time and looked at Chung Myung, who had interrupted. However, the expressions of these two were completely different. Baekcheon thought to himself, "Please just stay still, you damned bastard!" He was trying to express sentiment to Chung Myung through his facial expression, while Jin Hyun's face was beginning to overflow with indescribable fury. Chung Myung was clearly from a junior generation, but he dared to speak so disgracefully to his seniors. Mount Hua must not teach any courtesy. Courtesy? Chung Myung laughed. What a bunch of shit. You invade another sect and demand they shut their doors and leave, or risk being harassed and beaten, then have the nerve to talk about courtesy? For you, courtesy only enters the picture when it's convenient, right? Jin Hyun bit his lip. It was hard to counter Chung Myung's words. Jin Hyun knew that what he said wasn't wrong. What is there to talk about? You guys can do whatever you want. What do you mean? You were planning to come back in 6 hours, right? So, come back then. Feel free to show off your best skills as much as you want. But, Chung Myung smiled. You'd better be prepared to have your skulls broken when you come back. Remember, I warned you what would happen. Blood drained from Jin Hyun's face, and then, from his pale face, rose a terrifying rage. Episode 125. I'll show you what happens when you touch Mount Hua. Show off your best skills. Those words stabbed and twisted like a knife in Jin Hyun's heart. Damn, that cut deep. He couldn't help it. There were 9 disciples from the Wudang sect guarding the main entrance to Hwayoung Gate. Including Jin Hyun, there were 10 in total. But Mount Hua only sent 5 disciples. Okay, this would have made sense if they just picked one guy to fight one-on-one, right? But nah, these fools had come to assist their subsect, like, yeah, we're here to help. Even if they knew they'd get their asses handed to them by Wudang, they'd at least try and act tough before heading home. But this dude, Chung Myung, he wasn't talking about a friendly little fight. Nah, he was straight up saying they could take on all the Wudang disciples at once and walk out of there. As if the Wudang sect was just some light work. Jin Hyun's side had twice the number of Mount Huas, and yet Chung Myung was out here acting like Wudang didn't even matter. When in Jin Hyun's life had he ever been so straight up disrespected? Infinite Life Sutra, Jin Hyun mumbled, trying not to lose his cool. If he didn't repeat his teachings, his anger would spill over like a boiling pot, and he might just explode. He took a deep breath, looking at Baekchun with eyes that screamed, I'm about to lose it. Should I accept this as Mount Hua's will? Translation. Bro, are you all in on this? Or is it just this lunatic? But Baekchun, the senior disciple, just shrugged like he didn't give a damn. If we take back our words now, the whole world's gonna laugh at us, he replied, like, we're too deep in now. Jin Hyun bit his lip. Hard. He could deal with personal insults, but this wasn't just about him anymore. Chung Myung had basically spit on the Wudang sect, and that was crossing the line. One day, Jin Hyun said, staring daggers at Chung Myung, I'll give you one day. Tomorrow at this time, we'll come for Hwayoung Gate. Since you're the one who asked for this fight, don't go crying about any unforeseen accidents, all right? Chung Myung smirked, wiggling his finger in the air like, bring it on, bro. Come on. Jin Hyun's fists clenched so tight, it looked like he was about to pop a vein. His breathing got ragged and his face went white. Watching him, Yoonjong shook his head. This guy's gonna have a stroke before we even start, Yoonjong thought. He knew how it went with Chung Myung. Everyone thought this guy's greatest weapon was his martial arts. But nah, his real power? Pissing people off so bad they nearly dropped dead from pure rage. Yoonjong had experienced it firsthand. Every day with Chung Myung was like walking a tightrope over a pit of frustration. Honestly, he almost felt bad for Jin Hyun. Almost. Dude, just don't engage, Yoonjong thought. The more you argue, the angrier you get. Just shut up and walk away. But Jin Hyun kept his cool, somehow. Wow, props to Wudang. This guy's got some serious self-control. Tomorrow. This time, Jin Hyun repeated, grinding his teeth so hard they might have cracked. I'll be there. Don't bother begging for mercy. You're gonna learn why you're Mount Hua and we're Wudang. Yeah, whatever. Chung Myung waved him off, completely unbothered. Next thing you're gonna tell me is not to run away. Are we done here? Can I go chill now? Yoonjong's jaw nearly hit the floor. This devil. Did he spend 3 months training just to learn how to push people's buttons? Oddly enough, Jin Hyun didn't react. He was so furious, he'd entered that eerie calm, the kind where people snap and go totally silent. With one last icy glare, Jin Hyun turned around. I'll see you tomorrow. And with that, he left. Sahyung. Wudang's disciples rushed to Jin Hyun. Why are you leaving that arrogant prick alone? We don't need to wait till tomorrow. Let's take him down now. Right. I've never seen anyone so damn rude in my life. I just want to smash his head in and knock some sense into him. Hearing his fellow disciples grumbling, Jin Hyun paused. Right now? Hell yeah, now! Jin Hyun took a long, deep breath. If we fight now, there will be blood. His disciples fell silent. They'd been through enough battles to know what that meant. Jin Hyun wasn't talking about a little scuffle. He was saying that if they fought now, he'd end Chungmyung right there. As they left, Jin Hyun glanced back at Hwayong Gate. Let them sweat for a day. That's more than enough time to make them regret it. Mount Hua's disciples watched them go, a little uneasy. Meanwhile, Wei Lishan looked like he was about to pass out. What just happened? Wei Lishan had called for help, but was beating up the Wudang disciples part of the plan? Unaware of the chaos he'd caused, Chung Myung smiled. Well, you can sleep easy tonight. We've got it under control. Sleep easy? Wei Lishan stared at him in disbelief. Grrr! And then he fainted. Father! Wei Sohang and Yum Pyong shouted, rushing to his side. Chung Myung clicked his tongue. I didn't mean for him to take it that literally. The disciples of Mount Hua just sighed. Typical. Ha! Wei Lishan jumped out of his bed and looked up at the ceiling with his eyes wide open. He waited for a while and stroked his forehead with a trembling hand. It was a dream. Of course, such a nonsensical thing was impossible in real life. With a sigh of relief, Wei Lishan reached out for his kettle and gulped down some water. Drinking a bit of cold water, he felt like his heart was calming down. Click, the door opened and Yeom Pyong entered. Are you awake? How long have I been lying down? It was about 4 hours. I see. Wei Lishan felt like his body was getting weaker as things went on. It was necessary to rest and recover, but he felt like it was abnormal because his body was unable to stabilize. I need to get up. We never know when the Wudang sect will come. Didn't they say they were coming tomorrow? Tomorrow? Yes. Did they come while I was asleep? Yeom Pyong narrowed his eyes as he looked at Wei Lishan. Did you have any dreams? Yes, such a strange dream. A person came from Mount Hua, and that thug-like man argued with the Wudang sect's disciples and risked the fate of Hwayong Gate by demanding a fight. It was so absurd. Even in the dream, I thought I was going to faint. Does it make any sense for such a madman to come from Mount Hua? He even said that he's Mount Hua's divine dragon. Ha! My condition must be worse than I thought. Wei Lishan looked at Yeom Pyong and stopped laughing when he saw his serious expression. And silence fell. It cannot be. It is. I don't think so. It is quite clear. Wei Lishan's hands trembled. It happened? Calm down, gate leader. The water has already been spilled. Now that we've reached this point, maybe we should sneak off in the night. Night escape? Isn't it better than holding out and dying? Seeing the anger on that man's face, when he comes back tomorrow, he'll kill anyone in sight. Isn't he a Taoist? Leader, look at reality. If we counted the number of people the 9 great sects have killed, they would fill the entire Yellow River. Do you really think there are no wicked men among them? Wei Lishan was speechless and closed his mouth. If we want to save our lives, we need to think quickly. One day? No, there's not even a day left. Wei Lishan got up with a stiff face. Where are Mount Hua's disciples? I guided them to the annex. They must be there. I see. Wei Lishan accepted reality. If it wasn't a dream and had actually happened, then now was the time to make a decision. It wouldn't matter if I was alone. But Wei Lishan had a wife and child. He had disciples to protect. And above all, at this rate, they'll be upset too. Mount Hua's disciples had come to help Hwayong Gate in their time of need. Although they had chosen a bad method due to their inexperience, Wei Lishan couldn't bear to see them fall to the Wudang sect's sword. Pyong. Yes, gate leader. I think we should lower Hwayong Gate's signboard. Even if it isn't Nanyang, if we can keep the name Hwayong, wouldn't that be enough? Leader. Yeom Pyong felt troubled, but Wei Lishan seemed to be at ease now. It was all greed. Wei Lishan never wanted to abandon the land where he lived. His heart didn't want to be pushed aside by Wudang's disciples. He was overwhelmed by a desire to protect his gate. In the end, it was all because of his greed, and when he let go of his greed, he felt at ease. But the world doesn't always work the way we want. It won't work out the way you want, Father. Huh? Wei Soheng walked into the room. What do you mean? It won't work the way I want. Even if we try to give up now, the disciples of Mount Hua won't leave. Why? It's a bit strange, but they don't seem to have the slightest thought about losing to the Wudang sect. Wei Lishan's face darkened. What are they? Daredevils? No, it couldn't be. Even if the others were unaware, Baekchon, the righteous sword of Hua, is someone who must understand. He led the back disciples and would likely become the sect leader of Mount Hua someday. It didn't make sense for such a person to be unable to grasp the situation accurately. I need to meet with the righteous sword of Hua. Wei Soheng's face turned awkward. That's great. What? Well, he said that father must have woken up by now, and he requested to meet you. The righteous sword of Hua? No. Wei Soheng spoke with a shaky face. Mount Hua's divine dragon. That damn dragon of Mount Hua. What divine dragon? He has to be the shitty dragon. For once, Wei Soheng could fully sympathize with his father's choice of words.